Shalom, and here's the thought for the week. Around the world this week, all the Jewish people have begun the second book of the Torah, the book of Exodus. And it talks about the 70 Jewish people, the children of Jacob, as they entered Egypt. And that would eventually lead, initially it was very nice, Joseph took care of them, he was the viceroy of Egypt, and eventually they ended up, after Joseph passed away, they became slaves and had a very difficult time until Pharaoh even said to throw all the males into the Nile River. And finally that led to the exodus of Egypt and eventually the Jewish people getting the Torah when Charlton Heston would come down from Mount Sinai. And you know the story, you've seen the movie. The lesson is very interesting. It says that the Jewish people, as they entered Egypt, each of the 12 tribes, their names is related, each name, like Reuven, Shimon, Levi, they're all related to the redemption of Egypt. So the question is, as they're entering Egypt, we're talking about the redemption, that wouldn't happen until 210 years later. And the answer is very powerful. Even the descent into exile was really for the purpose of getting out of exile. The purpose of a descent is only the ascent that comes after. In life, whenever we fall down, whether it's emotionally, financially, in our relationships, it's always to be able to return on a higher level than before we fell. So first and foremost, don't ever feel down that you made a mistake. Recognize that after the mistake, the whole purpose of the mistake was to become stronger than before. And the whole purpose God sent the Jewish people into exile is to be able to get out of the exile, go into the desert and get the Torah. And ultimately to lead the Jewish people to the promised land with Joshua. But that was also limited because God promised the Jewish people the land of Israel, 10 nations that would become the land of Israel, and we only received 7. And we're still waiting for the last 3. So it says when Mashiach will come, at the time the Jewish people will all be in the land of Israel and will have that complete promise. So essentially every generation and every day we have to see ourselves as leaving Egypt. And that means that we haven't completed the exodus from Egypt. So, we re-encountered by the Seder, but the real exodus of Egypt happens when we finally, the times of Mashiach come, and we're in the promised land of Israel. And it's interesting. So therefore, even while we're in exile, we should see ourselves in the challenging times, the pandemic and everything going on, recognize that we're only here and already feel as if we're here so that we could get out of here. When I say get out of here, it means leave our restrictions, our spiritual bondage, and reach the ultimate level of spiritual freedom. I'm not being subservient to negativity and darkness, but bringing light, the light of Torah mitzvahs to the world around us. Who did this in exemplary fashion? Maimonides. Maimonides, whose yahrzeit is the 20th of Tevis this year, today, Friday. And therefore, we learn from Maimonides, he lived in Egypt in a very difficult period. He had a very difficult, but he managed to be a doctor. One of the top people, the Sultan, I believe it was, or his second in command. And at the same time, he wrote Responsa and wrote the book and code of Jewish law that we study till today. So we have to learn from Maimonides that even in challenging times, we could rise above it. And Maimonides, and we have actually a daily class that I send out in an audio that has the daily thought from the book of mitzvahs from Maimonides. I want to encourage everyone to try to study Maimonides every day, the laws of the Torah, how to act like a Jew. And he also tells us, Maimonides, that if you look at the whole world as an even scale of good and bad, you do one more mitzvah, you can weigh down the scale and bring redemption for all of mankind. So your next mitzvah will change the world. So be joyous and remember how powerful you are. May we have Mashiach now. Amen. Have a good Shabbos.